Welcome back everyone to our journey into real-time strategy, ML agents, reinforcement learning in Unity. How specific can you get, right? My name is Arno and we are still on our route to develop a Rambo unit that will totally wreck the battlefield with superior deep learned brain. Or, well, that is what I'm hoping for. In this video we're going to have a look at our volunteer and his little friends that will accompany him in this endeavor. In this game menu here, we have an overview of all the units currently in the game. The first one we want to have a look at is our machine learning unit, obviously, and his name is Tankdrik. Now, Tankdrik is a light tank, which basically means he's a tank with very little armor, but he's very maneuverable. A bit like the American Sherman tanks in World War II maybe, or maybe not, maybe it's a very bad comparison, but yeah, okay. So Tankdrik is named after Hendrik de Spaarzaam, who doesn't really need an introduction, I think. He is of course a very well-known hero throughout human history. If it were, let's say, Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc, then probably I would have at least owed the non-Europeans an explanation, because I'm not so sure how famous she is outside of Europe, but Hendrik de Spaarzaam, yeah, he's a world icon. So henceforth we will be calling the machine learning version of the light tank Tankdrik, because he's so awesome, and the old school heuristic version we will refer to as a light tank. Actually, none of these units have real engaging names at the moment, so anyone feel free to suggest some. Currently they're more like convenient category names rather than actual unit names. Now, before we go into detail on each matchup, it needs to be clear what Tankdrik's actual goal is. The machine learning brain needs to do better than the heuristic brain. That's the goal. And we will measure this by comparing net economic damage dealt. What does that mean? Any unit you create in RTS costs resources to construct. To keep it simple, building a tank might cost money. If a tank costs 1000 of this money and can destroy 2000 of the enemy property before it gets destroyed itself eventually, then we have a net economic damage of 1000. It's a bit like profit. Turnover minus cost is profit. It's not exactly the same though, because in a battle everyone actually loses, so it's not profit, it's damage really. Damage done before you and yourself also incur damage. So the 1000 net economic damage, that sounds like a good trade. One tank destroys the equivalent of 2 tanks, so should be good, right? And that's the simple measure we will use here. But the actual number itself means very little, of course, because we can just change the price of everything at any time. What is important is that Tankdrik needs to have a higher number than the heuristic light tank. Now let's talk about this heuristic light tank. Let's talk about the heuristic AI in general actually. Currently it's not incredibly smart, but it does the trick. There are actually 3 important things we need to know about how this thing works. 1. Wherever it moves, usually that's towards the enemy command center, it will always attack move. Attack move is a very well-known RTS term. It means you move there but you shoot at everything in sight. Then, second one. Units get priority over buildings. That's not really a bad call, because units do fight back, buildings don't. Well, currently they don't, we don't have stationary defenses yet. So if they don't shoot back, then you have all the time in the world to destroy them, so first destroy the things that actually do shoot at you. It makes some sense. Then 3. Units take revenge. If something shoots at it, it's very likely to shoot back. It's what they call aggro in some games. Now, aggro is a very well-known term in, for example, World of Warcraft. It simply means getting aggression directed towards you. So let's have a look at who Tankdrik is up against and what actually I would expect him to do in each matchup. First one is the scout unit. This thing is extremely fast, but it only has a machine gun, which is terrible against a tank, obviously. Now, Tankdrik doesn't really have a lot of armor, so it would be at least mildly effective. But in a one-on-one, the scout unit is very dead. This is what we would call a hard counter. A hard counter is when one unit always loses to the other one. It's like rock, paper, scissors. The scissors always loses to the rock. I mean, there are no exceptions to this. The scout unit gets completely demolished by the light tank. If the scout unit had an ML brain, however, maybe, because you see, tank shells, they have travel time in this game. It takes 1 to 2 seconds for a shell to hit, so in theory, a constantly moving scout unit could avoid ever getting hit. This is a really important factor, and maybe in future videos I'll actually try this matchup. An ML brain scout unit versus a normal light tank, that could be interesting. But okay, for now, let's just assume the scout loses. Next up. We have the light infantry. Slow, no armor, almost no damage output. It's really a crappy unit except versus heavy infantry. Actually, it's easy prey for a tank Drake. Now of course these units, they do still need rebalancing. I hope that goes without saying. Even after 10 years, StarCraft is constantly rebalancing the game, changing stats and abilities of each unit. The only reason the light infantry might not be such good prey for tank Drake is because it's so cheap it might not be worth shooting at it. However, the light infantry is very good at killing heavy infantry, so if the ML agent is really smart, he does protect his own heavy infantry. Which brings us seamless to the heavy infantry. They carry bazookas to fire plasma missiles that will always go in a straight line, and it completely negates armor. Now tank Drake doesn't have a lot of armor, it doesn't rely on it, but it will get trashed just the same. So he should definitely try to stay away from these guys while the light infantry or maybe the scout takes care of them. Next up is the light tank, and tank Drake itself of course, they have the same statistics. Kind of expecting a direct confrontation between a light tank and a machine learning version of it to go well for tank Drake, so for the machine learning version. It would definitely be in favor of tank Drake, it would be because of the way these heuristic units work and the travel time of a tank shell. Then, the heavy tank. Original name, I know. The heavy tank is really rather overpowered at the moment. It doesn't really have a hard counter apart from maybe the heavy infantry if you bring enough of them. It can take a lot of hits. It has the same firepower as the light tank, except it also has a guided missile. Now that guided missile is the reason even a very smart tank wouldn't stand a chance, I think. I guess it's possible for a tank Drake to beat one, but staying very close and circling it is not really very practical. I really expect the ML brain to just stay clear of it, and by that I primarily mean avoid attacking it, because remember, attacking draws the attention and tank Drake really doesn't want this bad boy's attention. Now, light artillery. Like all light units, it barely has any armor, it has a good range and speed, but it's a really lousy shot, so it shoots 2 missiles, but usually whatever it targets, it will miss. We really got our inspiration here from the Dune 2 missile launcher. For those lucky enough to have grown up playing Dune 2, you know what I'm talking about for sure. There's this one long-range unit in the game, just one, and the creators of the game must have thought, yeah, well, I know this is technically in the distant future where we have colonized all of space, we are traveling faster than light, etc. So probably nothing in that future should ever miss any kind of shot. But that would be so much fun. And they were right. I mean, it's absolute fun. It's fun that these things always miss their target somehow. No. So back to the subject. Tank Drake should totally smash these. Now we're getting to the 3 units that are going to be kept out of the equation. So I'll quickly introduce them, tell you why they're not in the exercise, and then we move on to the last one. First one, quite predictably after the light artillery, would be the heavy artillery. This one is currently really unbalanced. It brings way too much chaos to the battlefield because his heuristic brain is not aligned with his capability. He shoots a single missile, but it's so extremely powerful that it wipes the entire battlefield. Sometimes this includes himself, so he really needs some tweaking first. Well, a lot of tweaking actually. Then, 2 flying units. Now, we could have left those in. Tank Drake had no way to unrun or outgun them. But we could have left them in. But the problem is, it doesn't really matter what tank Drake does. If one targets him, he'll always lose, since he can't do anything. They are not going to help him learn anything either, so they are left out for now. Who knows, maybe later I'll put them back in. Maybe there is a way for him to get around this strange flying things he can't target, he can't outrun. But for now, less chaos means better learning, so let's just keep him away. Finally, there is the support unit. This thing has no weapons, all it does is heal other units. So for sure he's a prime target for tank Drake. Tank Drake should definitely go after these, not only because they are easy to kill, but also because destroying them makes all the other enemies easier to kill. I think the machine learning brain should really pick up on this, it would just make sense. Okay, so now we know all about tank Drake and his friends. In the next video we will actually get to work. The real start of this adventure. We're going to apply a very optimistic and naive approach. Maybe, who knows, it might fetch us some results already. Usually in machine learning that's not how things work out, but we might get lucky. So see you in the next video to do some machine learning.